Hi everyone, David Aragona here for another edition of the TimeformUS Road to the Derby series. The focus this week is in Hot Springs, Arkansas for the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn Park. This one is offering 50 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner of the race and also a $1 million purse, which has attracted a field of 11 3-year-olds. And let's throw up the field for this Rebel Stakes going the mile and the 16th distance on the dirt course. And it's a pretty interesting group. We've got 2 runners from the Brad Cox stable, 3 horses from the Steve Asmussen stable, and also a former Bob Baffert runner that, out of necessity to the rules about achieving points on the Kentucky Derby Trail, is being transferred to a new barn, Tim Yakteen, and that is the number 6 Reincarnate. You could also see some long shots drawn to the outside, but those 2 Brad Cox trainees were pegged as the favorites on the morning line, the number 1 verifying the slight morning line favorite over the number 5 Giant Mischief. So we'll talk about all of these individual contenders in just a little bit, but let's first check out some features in TimeformUS that could shed some light on how it handicapped this race. First up is the TimeformUS pace projector, and as you can see, fast pace being predicted here, not a big surprise because there is plenty of speed signed on in this large field. The number 2 Powerful, the number 7 Confidence Game, the number 11 Frosted Departure, but also the number 6 Reincarnate. They are all horses that like to do their best running on the front end or right on top of the pace. So it figures to be a contested pace up front, and that would help some of the closers, especially a horse like the number 3 Red Route 1, who will be coming from the back of the packet here. And we'll see how some of those Brad Cox trainees do adapt to this pace. That number 1 verifying the morning line favorite is a horse that has been forwardly placed when he's been successful. So we'll see if he can come from just off the pace, breaking from the rail in this Rebel Stakes. Let's also take a look at the TimeformUS finish projector. This is a new feature in TimeformUS that is launching on DRF Mobile PPs. You can just tap on the TimeformUS tab in your DRF Mobile PPs to toggle over to the finish projector. And this isn't TimeformUS algorithms picks based on speed figures, the pace of the race, the TimeformUS data, and you can see that the number 5 Giant Mischief was selected by TimeformUS as the winner of this race. He is coming in with the best speed figures. Same goes for the number 6 Reincarnate, who is shown in second. Those 2 have the top TimeformUS speed figures coming into this race, so it makes sense that the algorithm has selected those 2 on top, with some big gaps back to the others, including the number 1 verifying that morning line favorite that is shown in third. So let's dive into the contenders, and we'll begin with those 2 Brad Cox trainees. First up is the number 1 verifying, and we'll check out his last race when he won pretty impressively back in January at Oaklawn Park. This was an optional claimer, nominators of one other than you can see also highlighted on the rail this day is Gun Pilot, who is back in this field as well, but verifying was clearly superior over that rival on this occasion, and verifying has been flattered by runbacks out of this race. Gun Pilot came back to win. We'll talk about that race in just a little bit, but also the 3rd place finisher, 2 Eagles River, came back to win a race at Oaklawn last week with an improved speed figure. So verifying got a 108 TimeformUS speed figure. I think there's an argument that that number might actually be higher just based on the fact that horses have come back out of that race to do particularly well. And verifying is a horse that had a nice foundation from his 2-year-old season. He was a good second in the Champagne and just the second start of his career. Obviously was a little bit overmatched in the Breeders' Cup last year. Couldn't quite be competitive with the likes of Forte and Cave Rock, who were the best 2-year-olds at that time, but feels like verifying might have improved since then, and he certainly has the pedigree to keep getting better with added distance. By Justify out of a dam that has produced Midnight Busu, that multiple Grade 1 winner going route distances on the dirt. So verifying does seem like a strong contender in this Rebel Stakes. The other Brad Cox trainee is the number 5 Giant Mischief. We'll take a look at his last race in the Springboard Mile, and we're just going to show the stretch run, but you might also want to check out the start of this race on your own because Giant Mischief just completely blew the start. He broke a couple lengths behind the field and had a lot of work to do to get back into contention. Actually reined up like he was going to potentially win the race at the quarter pole, but just couldn't quite stay on terms with the eventual winner, Wild Atlantic Storm, who does win this race by about a length and a half. All in all, this was a good performance from Giant Mischief, who backed up that big speed figure that he had earned in his second start at Keeneland when he won over the heavily favored Arabian Lion. Got a 115 that day, came back with a 113 last time in the Springboard Mile despite having that trouble. So he's coming in as one of the fastest horses in this race. However, I'm a little bit concerned about him getting at a distance. It's just an extra 16th of a mile, but I get the strong vibes that Giant Mischief is a horse that is ultimately going to be best in one-turn races. He's buying to Mischief. His damn Vertical Oak was just a confirmed sprinter, the kind of horse that really didn't want to go beyond 6 furlongs. So I do have some worries that Giant Mischief might not get better as the distances continue to get longer. But one additional factor that both Giant Mischief and Verifying have to deal with in this Rebel Stakes is they're both coming off Lasix. Both of their impressive speed figures last time out were earned with Lasix in races where you could run on that medication. And I did look up a stat for trainer Brad Cox with regard to his horses coming off Lasix in the graded stakes races over the past 5 years. And this is a negative stat for a lot of trainers, but not so with Brad Cox. He is 18 for 56, that winning nearly a third of those 50 plus races with a $2.22 ROI. So you don't have to worry too much about Brad Cox switching these horses off Lasix to contest these graded stakes races. They tend to hold their form and actually run better than the public expects them to. So I think Verifying definitely a legitimate player, and Giant Mischief too, if he's able to handle the distance. Next up, let's take a look at that horse coming in from California, the number 6 Reincarnate, and we'll check out his last race in the Sham Stakes. Now, this is a horse who was trained on this day by Bob Baffert. He is listed as running under Tim Yakteen's name in this Rebel Stakes, but make no mistake, this horse has been training with Bob Baffert in California. He was wearing Bob Baffert's tack during his last workout there just earlier this week. So for all intents and purposes, Reincarnate has been prepared by Bob Baffert for the start in the Rebel Stakes. He is, of course, switching into the barn of Tim Yakteen for this race because he's just following the rules to actually get Kentucky Derby qualifying points. Bob Baffert trainees are not allowed to accrue points on the Kentucky Derby trail if they are running under his name. So Reincarnate did achieve a career best 114 at TimeformUS speed figure for that last out victory in the Sham Stakes, that race we just looked at. And he was pretty game to get the job done that day. His stablemate Newgate ranged up outside him in mid-stretch, and Reincarnate just turned him away. And that form was flattered when Newgate came back to win the Robert B. Lewis with a nice speed figure in his next start. So Reincarnate definitely seems like he's coming in here with legitimate form. The big question is, how is he going to handle the ship? Can he continue improving? And with all the speed in this race, what kind of trip is he going to work out? Will he be able to get to the front end as he has in his last 2 victories in California? Let's now take a look at some of those Steve Asmussen trainees in this race. He does have 3 horses running in this Rebel Stakes. And first, we'll take a look at the number 4 Gun Pilot, and we'll check out his last race. And we already talked about his race 2 back when he was second to Verifying. And this is the race that really flattered Verifying when Gun Pilot came back to win his next start and did so pretty impressively. You could say he's got to be asked to reel in Bourbon Bash, who is also back in this field. But once he gets by that foe, he really lengthens his stride coming to the finish. The short stretch of that mile run didn't seem to bother him at all. He got a 101 TimeformUS speed figure, pretty much right in line with the figure that he got for finishing second to Verifying in his prior start. But I like the way he finished that day. He feels like a horse that is going to appreciate the extra 16th of a mile that he gets to work with here. He's certainly bred to get added ground, being by Gun Runner. A little bit more turf on the dam side, but he's certainly shown himself to be a horse that handles the dirt. So a horse that has upside, and we'll see if he's able to take the step forward to be competitive with this field. Another horse from the Steve Asmussen barn is the number 3 Red Route 1. We'll take a look at his last race when he ran in another Derby prep at Oaklawn Park. This was the Grade 3 Southwest Stakes. And Red Route 1, you can see he's towards the left of the screen still, has a lot of ground left to make up in the stretch of this race, but he's going to put in a relentless rally despite kind of swapping leads in the stretch there through the slop to get up for second on this day. The other horse highlighted in this race is the number 11 Frosted Departure, and Red Route 1 is going to wear that rival down to get up for second. Clearly, neither of these were any match for the winner of this race, Arabian Night, but a lot of people consider Arabian Night to currently be the top contender moving towards the Kentucky Derby, so no disgrace losing to that foe. And Red Route 1, he has just been consistently improving since they switched him to dirt. Ran well in his initial dirt start, finishing third behind Forte and Loggins in the Breeders' Futurity. I thought he had a trip 2 back in the Kentucky Jockey Club when the pace was slow. You see all those blue-colored color-coded TimeformUS pace figures across the running line, and Red Route 1 just had nowhere to go in the stretch of that race, whereas the winner, Instant Coffee, got to make a clear run on the outside. And then last time out, it's not like the pace fell apart in that Southwest, and Red Route 1 was clearly doing the most running of anybody else from the back of the pack. So that 109 TimeformUS speed figure certainly puts him in the mix, and it feels like he is supposed to get the right kind of pace setup for him to be successful in this Rebel Stakes. So definitely one to consider. Let's move on to the number 11, Frost the Departure. He is the other horse coming out of that Southwest Stakes, and I don't want to overlook this horse. He's going to be a big price in this spot for trainer Ken McPeak. He was 46-1 last time out in the Southwest and certainly outran those odds to complete the trifecta. He did get a pretty good trip that day, just setting up shop outside of Arabian Nights, stalking that foe, and held on for third at the end in a race where only Red Route 1 did significant running from the back of the pack. That said, his recent speed figures of 109 and 108, they do give him a look at this. He is drawn in the outside post position, so that's a little bit of a negative, but he's going to be a big price again, so I don't want to completely overlook a horse that could offer value in a race like this. Let's move on to talk about the final Steve Asmussen runner that we'll discuss in this field. That is the number 2, Powerful. And this is a horse that will be stretching out around 2 turns for the second time in his career. The prior time that he tried it in the Breeders' Futurity, things didn't really go according to plan. He was off about a length slowly, was out of position the entire way, and the performance and result was just a disaster for him. But he's run well in his 3 other starts, all around 1 turn, was pretty game to break his maiden at Saratoga last summer, and then won a minor stakes at Churchill Downs towards the end of last year, again, showing that real grit and determination to turn back multiple challenges, including that of Frost the Departure, one of the horses that we just talked about in this race. So Powerful has to answer the distance question here. Can he get the 2 turns? I'm not totally convinced, but he does figure to be the biggest price of the Steve Asmussen runners entered in this race. The number 7, Confidence Game, is another horse that could be a price in this race. He's coming off a decent performance last time out when he was 3rd in the Lecomte Stakes. We saw 2 Phils, who was 2nd that day, come back to finish 3rd in the Risen Star last weekend. The winner of that race, Instant Coffee, considered to be one of the top contenders from the Brad Cox stable moving ahead to the Kentucky Derby right now. Confidence Game had a right to get tired at the end of that Lecomte because he was contesting a pace that was pretty quick. You see those red color-coded TimeformUS pace figures. So he just tired at the end. Still got a decent 107 TimeformUS speed figure, but he is another horse that has run his best races when he is up close on or pressing the pace, and it could be difficult to pull that kind of trip and be successful in this Rebel Stakes. One more horse that I want to talk about in this field is the number 9, Event Detail. And the big question that he has to answer is the dirt surface, because he has run some nice races the last couple of times that we've seen him going the 2-turn mile distance at Turfway Park. But those are both races that are run over a synthetic track. And he's gotten some nice speed figures, was a visually impressive winner last time. But I have some concerns about this horse transferring that form on the Tapeta to the dirt, because he really does have more of a turf pedigree on the dam side. His dam was a turf horse. His second dam was a turf horse. And even progeny of City of Light, while City of Light himself was a dirt horse, we've seen his progeny have much more success on the turf. So I'm a little bit concerned about Event Detail being best on the dirt surface, and think he's a talented horse that could in the future have success in turf races or other synthetic races, but just not sure this is the right spot for him. So let's throw my picks for this Rebel Stakes, and I'm going to go with that pace projector and to a horse that I've been a fan of throughout this Kentucky Derby trail, and that is the number 3, Red Route 1. I just think he's going to get the right kind of setup in this race. Ran better than it looks to back in the Kentucky Jockey Club, and last time was just beaten by a better horse in the Southwest Stakes. I think this is the opportunity for him to take a step forward at what should be a fair price in the Rebel Stakes on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.